Tornadoes.
Here comes the tornado.
They twist. They turn. They kill. These are the stories from people who work in extreme weather.
We just lost a big window.
It was just like a bomb went off.
And nobody is coming to save you.
And the storms they'll never forget.
Wham! Crack! Bang! Bang! Bang!
We're going to die.
Plus, the how and why behind the world's worst weather.
Mother Nature is one mother.
The state of Nebraska is no stranger to tornadoes. Located within the infamous Tornado Alley, Nebraska gets 57 tornadoes per year on average.
Tornadoes are something that we've been studying for a long time. They occur in what we call tornado belts, in a sense, areas where there's a predominance of tornadoes. Well, the scientists for predicting tornado formation is that you look for the conditions in the atmosphere where it is, first of all, very warm, enough moisture, and unstable in the sense that there is vertical motion happening.
Storm chaser and tornado tour guide George Karunas has been chasing tornadoes for over 20 years.
It is impossible for me to add up the number of days, weeks, months, miles that I have traveled. It's typical for me to live like a nomad, crisscrossing the Great Plains of the United States for 4 to 6 weeks every springtime. In all of my years of storm chasing, I've seen a lot of flying debris, things being thrown through the air by tornadoes, but this was a close call.
As a tornado-chasing tour guide, George Karunas gives clients an up-close and personal view of these destructive weather monsters. Each spring, he spends 2 weeks at a time chasing tornadoes, with clients along for the extreme ride.
I'm gonna jump out and get a shot of this.
Every spring, I disappear and head to Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Nebraska, and literally just go where the wind takes me. We have to try and forecast where the storms are going to be, and then drive to maneuver to get into position to where we think the storms are going to form. If you're lucky, a storm will go up, you chase it, you try to navigate around the roads, and if you're really, really lucky, you'll see a tornado.
May 12, 2013. It's Mother's Day. George and his clients get ready for what they hope will be an epic storm-chasing day.
Thank you. It's the early morning. We're putting our weather forecast together. We realize that there's potential for some storms later in the day. I've gathered together all the guests from the tornado tour, and I'm ready to give them a briefing. But it's Mother's Day. What do you have to do on Mother's Day? Call Mom. So I'm on the phone with my mother.
I know, Mom.
The conversation was a typical Mother's Day conversation. Hey, how you doing? Everything is good. But then she said something that was a little unusual. She said that she was particularly concerned for my safety today.
I know, Mom. It's not my first rodeo.
So I thought it was weird that she said that.
Little did George know, but his mother's instinct about Mother Nature may have been correct.
So I hang up the phone with my mom. We do our weather briefing, let everyone know what's going on for the day, and then we pile into the vans and head towards our target area, which happens to be in south central Nebraska this particular day.
Nebraska is a huge trigger for tornadoes due to its dry lines, a separation of moist and dry air. When these two fronts collide, air rises and storms develop.
Chasing tornadoes is all about gambling your knowledge versus the curveballs that Mother Nature is going to throw you. So we do a very sophisticated analysis of all the computer weather models. We look at satellite data, we look at radar data, and we develop a target area. And as the day progresses, the weather information gets better and better. So we're able to narrow our target down as the day goes on. The computer models are telling us that there is a potential for supercell thunderstorms, that is these giant rotating storms, the ones that are most likely to produce tornadoes.
When you have certain kinds of events in the atmosphere, and there's, say, a cold front coming through or a warm front, you'll create, let's say, convective cells of storms here and here and here and here, what we call a supercell. It will be much more intense, more super. Unfortunately, that means more devastating, usually, than an ordinary cell.
We get people join us on these chases from all over the world. Folks from Canada, the US, all over England and Europe, people from Australia and New Zealand, weather enthusiasts, the kind of people that don't run inside when there's thunder and lightning. We have a sophisticated setup. I'm driving. We have the owner of the tour company, who is also the navigator, in the passenger seat, and then all of the guests are in the back. And we've got cameras set up that are facing back. I've got cameras on the dashboard, because we want to capture every minute of the chase. Late in the afternoon, we have a target storm that goes up in south central Nebraska. And we're able to get in front of it. And we're looking basically down the throat of this supercell. And it is a dark mass along the horizon. You can see a sharp edge, and then it's just nothing but black underneath. This is what we call an HP supercell, a high precipitation, meaning there's a lot of rain coming out of it, and that can make it extra dangerous. If there's a tornado embedded in that rain, you could be hit by it and not even see it coming. The fact that this storm was a high precipitation type really upped the danger level. So I really wanted to make sure that I gave this storm a wide berth.
As George and his guests head into the storm, the sky becomes black. It looks mean. A few miles away, they spot a tornado in the distance.
Is that the tornado there?
That is it.
Their clients in the back seat are thrilled. This is what they came for. The team decides they've got to pick up the pace to get ahead of the storm.
We were getting into a tricky situation. I was on a dirt road with this monster storm bearing down on us that is about to dump a ton of rain. It had just been issued with a tornado warning, and I couldn't tell if there was a tornado wrapped up in all that rain. I'm there to chase the storms and bring these paying customers to come and see them as well. But the #1 priority is keeping everyone safe. We see it produce a small tornado on the horizon, and it's starting to accelerate. This storm is getting closer and closer to us. And we know that the road that we're on, this dirt road, is probably going to turn into mud in a matter of minutes.
It's coming right at us right now. We're gonna need to turn around.
We turn the van around and start blasting out of there. And then things get really hairy.
Located within the infamous Tornado Alley, the state of Nebraska gets an average of 57 tornadoes per year. May 12, 2013. A full-on tornado is forming, and tornado tour guide George Karunas has just entered the supercell storm, taking his passengers along for what may be a dangerous ride.
At this point, the storm is probably moving about 40 miles an hour. So I have to really hit the gas to try and stay ahead of it, because we know we're going to get engulfed by the heaviest rain and hail. Being in front or in the path of a tornado is extremely dangerous. If you see a tornado and it's not moving left and it's not moving right, it just looks like it's getting bigger, guess what? It's coming straight for you. The biggest problem with tornado chasing is the unknown. You can try and predict where this tornado is going to go, but they don't always go where you think they're going to go, and the roads don't always cooperate. One of the most dangerous part about chasing a storm that can produce a tornado is not the tornado that you can see. It's the tornado that you can't see because it's either wrapped in rain or it's forming right on top of you. And that's exactly what happened this day.
And what George couldn't see, all of a sudden reared its ugly head.
And then out the side to our south, somebody spots a tornado touching down very close to us in the field. I can't see it because I'm driving. And here's the thing about tornadoes. Tornado is a rotating column of wind, not necessarily cloud. So you could have a swirling mass of debris that doesn't look like much, but it's a tornado. That's exactly what happened on this day in Nebraska. We see to the south the tornado. I'm driving east. We know the storm is moving northeast. That puts that tornado on a perfect trajectory to intercept us. The chaser has become the chased.
Look at that. Oh man, it's coming in quick.
Do we try to outrun the tornado? Do I try to put on the brakes and let the tornado pass? You have seconds to make really important decisions, especially because you've got a van full of people who are in your hands and you're responsible.
We need to get out of here. We gotta go.
Gotta get out of here, man. Let's go.
Every minute you're making dozens of very important decisions that could be life or death.
Make sure you got your seatbelts on right now.
And at this point, all we can do is try to outrun it. My biggest concern was being rolled over by these winds. I could feel the wind pushing the side of the van, and I'm fighting it as hard as I can. Imagine driving a barn down the road. That's what it's like with one of these big vans.
But George's van isn't the only thing that these forceful winds may roll over.
And it just so happens that we're driving past an irrigation system. This is equipment that farmers use to water their crops. These irrigation pivots, they're basically a long, what looks like a piece of scaffolding with wheels that a farmer will set up in the middle of their field, and then it rotates around. If you've ever been flying over the central US and you look down out of the airplane and you see those circles for crops, that shows you where they've been using these irrigation circle equipment. One of these is parked parallel to the road, and I'm trying to get ahead of this storm now.
We just gotta move.
I'm holding the steering wheel with all of my strength.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
I'm just bracing against the wind, flooring the gas. The tornado now starts to push this piece of farm equipment over.
You all right?
The end piece could have easily gone through the windshield and into any one of us. Scary stuff.
Everyone okay?
What did you hit?
For that to be blown over the way it was, I can't imagine how strong the winds were. I'm surprised the van didn't roll. The guests in the back, they were fully aware that it was a close call. When you have farm equipment starting to come through your windshield, that's a pretty good indicator that you're in the wrong place. When the dust finally settled and we were able to stop, we got out to do a damage assessment to see how bad this was. It was shocking to see how little damage there was. I was expecting the entire side of the van to be just completely destroyed and demolished. there was very little damage at all, just a broken mirror and a smashed windshield.
Close one, eh? Yeah.
I'm not proud of what happened that day. It was a clear example of being in the wrong place, and we probably should have evacuated out of there much earlier than we did. But it's hard to tell. You can do everything right and still end up in the wrong place. Everyone in that car will remember that day.
Tornadoes are very destructive because they're very intense winds over a relatively small spatial scale, but the wind speeds themselves within a tornado are really horrific, so they can literally blow a building apart.
I know, Mom.
Of course, my mother had warned me earlier in the day that she was particularly worried about my safety. Well, later that evening, that video ended up airing all over the world on the evening news. Mom got to see firsthand how right she really was. Over the years with all of my adventures, I have given my mother a lot of gray hairs. This particular day, she got a few extra. In all of my years of storm chasing, I've seen a lot of flying debris, things being thrown through the air by tornadoes, but this was a close call. It wouldn't have taken much. If I was driving maybe a little bit faster, that farm equipment would have maybe not hit the windshield, maybe come through the side window and taken out one of the paying customers. So that absolutely was the day that weather changed my life.
Tornado winds wreak havoc on everything in their paths as they pick up speed.
Can you hear it?
Almost nothing stands in their way. Potentially more destructive is the tornado's spiraling vortex as it reaches the ground. Anything can be ripped apart or thrown in the air, creating a deadly field of debris.
Tornadoes need, first of all, heat. They have to have the energy. They need moisture. And they need the right combination of the wind, what we call the wind shear. The change in wind as you go from the surface up into the atmosphere, such that it can cause that rotating force.
While most people are seeking shelter from the vortex, storm chaser Tim Baker is trying to get as close to the vortex as possible.
I don't have any noble reason why I chase tornadoes. I mean, I'd like to use my stuff to help for safety and maybe help protect lives, but the reality is I want the adrenaline rush.
Tornadoes on the ground! The tornado's on the ground!
I don't want to just see the tornado from a half a mile away. I want to touch the edge of that thing.
It's a rain-wrapped tornado!
But on this particular day, I was trapped in the path of it with no escape. When you're stuck in a tornado, you're done. I was just waiting to die.
Tim Baker, better known as Tornado Tim, has been chasing storms for over 20 years.
I like to go by the name Tornado Tim because I like chasing tornadoes. That's kind of my passion in life.
For more than 2 decades, Tornado Tim has played cat and mouse with Mother Nature.
Tornado's coming! Tornado's coming!
Outrunning the twists and turns of literally hundreds of tornadoes. But on May 13, 2009, all that came to a dead end. With a population of less than 20,000, Kirksville is a small town in the northwest of Tornado Alley. Over 2,000 tornadoes have torn through Missouri since 1950, and Kirksville and surrounding area have been hit dozens of times.
Tornadoes are something that we've been studying for a long time. They occur in what we call tornado belts, areas where there's a predominance of tornadoes.
Tim begins to check his weather maps and models.
In May of 2009, I was already in Kansas. There was just a slight chance of severe storms the day before, and nothing really happened, so I looked at the weather maps to see where the front has moved, see where the low has moved, see where the jet stream's positioned, because they never stay exactly as the predictions were. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how far north, south, east, west I need to adjust to. You got to be fairly accurate because your first predictions are going to get you in a region where you don't want to be more than 60 miles off target. Because you've got to travel distance when the storms start to fire, and then when the tornado starts to form, you got to be pretty close or it's going to happen and be gone and you won't be there. I chase in the same areas all the time, and I know those roads like the back of my hand. But on this particular day, I was chasing in an area of Missouri I'd never been in before, and that's when things really changed. There was a lot of country, farmish type roads, a lot of turning in the roads that I wasn't familiar with. So this was very unfamiliar territory.
Although he may have been in unfamiliar territory, this did not diminish Tim's ego, as he began to play tag with Mother Nature, a game he normally wins.
Oh yeah, we've got a tornado forming right here, baby.
Today was proving an exceptional day for tornado chasing.
That first tornado that day was great because I was able to watch the tornado come at me.
Very violent tornado.
In fact, I start to see branches and debris falling on top of my car from that first tornado because I was so close.
Debris. We have debris.
I waited to the last second, and I floored it. I mean, you can hear my tires squeal from my car as I'm getting away from it. And I'm playing tag with this first one. Instead of just sitting at a distance and watching it move, I go in and I tag it. I touch the outer fields of the tornado winds. And then I punch away, get away from it. And then I wait for it to catch up to me again, and I come in and I touch the outer edge of it. And experience that and then get away from it. There's nothing like it. Seeing a tornado is one thing, but I want to experience it, and I'm experiencing that tornado. I mean, let's face it, I am Tornado Tim. So playing with a tornado is part of me. It's part of my identity.
Tim may know who he is. Unfortunately, he doesn't know where he is.
I'd never been in that area, so I didn't know what to expect. It's very windy and it's hilly. So the winding roads, the trees, was making it difficult for me to know exactly where I was in the position of the direction of the tornado. I couldn't tell sometimes if I was going north, south, east, or west. So it was making that really complicated.
The last thing anybody wants when they are in the path of a killer tornado is to not know their surroundings in order to plan an escape route.
Tornado is tailing me.
I came into Kirksville and I could see that tornado heading straight for this subdivision. The lights go out. There's power flashes. You see the tornado ripping up the power poles. So like any time you get overconfident, you start to make decisions that you probably in a normal, logical sense wouldn't make. I started to turn onto roads that I had never been on before to get directly in the path of a tornado. I can start to hear the wind scream. I realize, all right, I've got to move now. So I start to move into the subdivision. And I thought, I'm going to turn right, drop south of this tornado, and watch it go by me. So I get there, I turn right, And it's a dead end. So the first time in my life, I am trapped in the path of a tornado. And I'm watching it rip stuff apart. I was just waiting to die.
Missouri ranks as one of the top 10 states struck by tornadoes. And May 13, 2009 is no exception. Kirksville, Missouri. Tornado winds are raging at 200 miles per hour. Destruction is everywhere. And storm chaser Tornado Tim Baker is stuck on a dead-end street.
So the first time in my life, I am trapped in the path of a tornado. And I'm watching it rip stuff apart. I thought a million things. I'm thinking, I'm on a dead-end road and I will die here. How stupid was I to do this? My family's gonna have to pick up my body in Kirksville, Missouri, and they don't even know where it is on the map. All these things are just floating through your head. Tornado Tim dies by being killed by a tornado. I'm feeling stupid. And I'm watching that thing come in. I realize the debris from those houses is gonna be thrown into my car.
With nowhere to go, Tim braces for the 135-mile-per-hour tornado and the debris that's flying through the air.
When you hear a warning of a tornado, don't wait for the first warning and think, well, what should I do? What you should probably have is a safe place. It could be part of your basement, something that allows you to get in a place where you're not going to be blown apart.
So I've got my camera faced right outside of the front window, and you just start to see little debris, bigger debris, starting to throw it around. And I'm looking out my window and I see this spinning column of boards and 2x4s and plywood floating coming right at me. It starts to get really close and then the debris gets larger. I see things now starting to slam into my car and then fly over it that are bigger than my car. Entire sheets of plywood, siding, nails, glass, metal, everything is slamming into my car. The car's being rocked. You can just hear the banging happening to my car. All along, I was certain I was going to be picked up, thrown into a tree, and bent around like a pretzel and killed. I was just waiting to die. I actually started uttering, God, I'm really sorry, and I'm in your hands.
I'm in your hands, Luke. I'm in your hands.
The tornado was probably moving at 35 to 40 miles an hour, and the wind speeds within the tornado were probably 110 to 135 miles an hour. At that point, I pretty much said Mother Nature wins. When you're stuck in a tornado, you're helpless. You're done. Nothing you can do.
The tornado and the debris pass through. And miraculously, Tornado Tim survives.
You know, you asked me what I was thinking when I was sitting in the car and the debris pounding in the car. What goes through your mind as a tornado chaser who's highly experienced and studied severe weather and tornadoes, I'm thinking of all the ways people die in a tornado. All that's going through my mind, I know all the ways I'm potentially about to die.
Subdivision took a direct hit. Right next to me.
The sad thing is people get killed, property's destroyed, people lose a lot of their life savings. 2 people had died from that tornado. There was over a dozen injuries in the town. So it has a negative impact on the town that way, and certainly a lot of people suffer. The next storm chase season wasn't the same after that. There was something in the back of my mind that wasn't letting me get as close. In fact, it was early on the next spring, I was right spot on to get a tornado. I was gonna be right on the edge of that thing. And I got to the outer bands and there was a lot of rain and I stopped. And I thought, I don't want to be trapped like Kirksville again. I'm less likely to turn on an unknown road if I can at least check the maps first. I still chase today and will be chasing until the day I die.
Tornado winds cause catastrophic damage. They demolish any obstacle in their path. They create spinning fields of killer debris. And sometimes they literally suck you into the eye of the storm.
The wind fields around tornadoes are a very curious beast. They are all sucking in towards the tornado, just on the edge of the updraft, which is very strong within these violent thunderstorms. There really is a sucking motion taking debris skyward. The strongest tornadoes have such force behind them, they can actually peel pavement off highways.
Veteran storm chasers and husband and wife team Jeff and Kathy Piotrowski are known for capturing some of the greatest tornado footage in their industry. This power couple's adrenaline not only drives their passion, but drives them into the eye of the storm.
I've been chasing storms for almost 40 years now. Tornadoes, to me, is an extraordinary event for Mother Nature to release its fury and watch it all go from clear skies to the most violent storm on planet is absolutely amazing. This one day, it was the largest, biggest, widest tornado we filmed in 40 years. I knew it was something special and something different that I had never witnessed before. If it gets you and you get sucked in, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble.
Jeff and Kathy are no strangers to tornadoes. Living in Oklahoma, they are all too familiar with Tornado Alley.
Tornado Alley is in the central part of the U.S. where we have to have those perfect ingredients to come together every spring, and that is the Gulf of Mexico sends moisture northward into the Central Plains. We have a strong jet stream coming in from California as the upper winds come out of the southwest, and it brings the dry air out of the desert, out of Arizona, New Mexico, and that dry air, hot air will hit the moisture, and it causes thunderstorms to erupt. And if the jet stream's aloft and we got low pressure in the Rockies, then you create a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere, and when that happens, you get the storms to rotate. Before this particular tornado, the average tornado has a certain size and a certain speed. A lot of times they move to the northeast at like 25 miles an hour, and they behave a certain way based on the conditions for that day. But on this particular day, all those rules went out the window, and it did things that we've never seen before. Reno is just west of Oklahoma City, about 30 miles on I-40.
Yeah.
So the morning of May 31st, we were looking at the data that we knew there was a risk out, a moderate risk.
There it is, yeah. Okay.
And we knew Oklahoma City area was going to be under the gun for significant weather and tornadoes. That morning, we looked at the data, and I said, hey, we're going to go to Reno. That's kind of going to be ground zero area of where something bad was going to happen. So we knew that. So we left Tulsa around 10 o'clock in the morning. We drive to Oklahoma City. On our way down, we're watching the radar, we're watching satellite, and there's already storms developing in southeast Kansas along the draw line in the front. And we see these things coming together and during the course of the day.
It's getting really ominous looking. The horizon's getting darker and darker. There's the brightness to the west of the dry line, and the clouds are forming from the north to the south also.
So we set up on the northwest side of El Reno, and the storms are developing about 25 miles west of El Reno. There are thunderstorms growing in air mass, kind of like you see on a spring day. You see these big, huge cumulus clouds developing. And I'm watching radar, and I'm watching the storm. And the radar image just gets better, worse by worse every minute it updates. Every couple minutes we get a new radar image. And I've got hail forming.
Hail forms in storms that produce tornadoes, again, because of that correlation of wind shear and the heat and energy. The shear keeps the storm going. It propels these storms to last an hour, maybe even 2 hours. Hail needs time in the atmosphere to grow. That is why these big tornado producers often produce large hail as well. The hail is produced in the updraft portion of the storm, and it is basically buoyed aloft in this strong updraft in order to create the largest hailstorm.
I can see torrential rain, and the worst sign is the storm is already starting to show the signs. It's starting to rotate and spin, and I've got rotating curtains, which is a precursor before the tornado that the storm is rotating, so it's like a shower curtain in the bathroom. If you pull the curtain around, the rain is just following that wind, and as the storm rotates, the rain follows that rotating curtain, and so I see that on the radar. I see a hook starting to form, and at that point, I say it's time, we're going after the storm. So it's raining, there's hail, and there's wind, and the storm is getting darker and darker, and it's looking more ominous by the second.
When we're approaching the El Reno storm, the first thing I see is a vortice, and I don't see just one, I see multiple vortices coming down. The vortices are tornadoes. They're the tornadoes that are touching the ground, but they're coming back up, and then another one will come down, and it'll go back up, and then they were just dancing around one another before they formed the main event, the main tornado. I'm knowing that it's going to be a very violent storm.
Almost half of Oklahoma tornadoes occur in May. And May 31st, 2013 will go down in history when the widest tornado ever recorded reared its ugly head in the city of El Reno. Storm chasers Jeff and Kathy Piotrowski are entering the mouth of the beast.
The storm's getting darker and darker, and it's looking more ominous by the second. Now we're heading west on I-40, west of El Reno, and the storm is severe. A severe thunderstorm warning has been issued by the Weather Service.
I knew it was going to be very dangerous, something I was going to have to be very aware of. I didn't have time to be frightened. I had to be really cognizant, very aware of what was going on so I could keep us both safe.
It's not my first rodeo. I mean, after you film about 900 of these, you get a sense of what's going to happen before it happens. But this one had a few tricks up its sleeve.
And for Jeff and Kathy, this tornado was going to use every twisted trick in the book.
Originally, when the storm developed, we were about 20 to 30 miles east of it, but then at the time the tornado was forming, it was only about a quarter mile away from the tornado. Then we went back to the east to get ready for the intercept as the tornado was approaching Reno. First of all, the storm structure was really amazing, and also the inflow into the tornado, the storm itself, was sustained at 50, gusting to 80 miles an hour. Way in advance of the tornado itself, the inflow was like a hurricane of air rushing into the bottom of the storm. So that in itself caught my attention. Then what caught my attention even more, as the tornadic storm was moving southeast, and as Kathy said, we'd have multiple tornadoes dance around each other. And generally we have multiple tornadoes, not all the time, but sometimes they'll join into one large tornado. And I saw one concentric tornado, it slowed down, and I literally watched it go from southwest to south of me, and it stopped, and it got wider and wider and wider in front of us. And then all of a sudden, it just goes boom, and starts taking off the east. We turn east, it's out Kathy's window, she's watching the tornado, I'm watching the map, and it's a race is on now to stay in front of the tornado, and this tornado is accelerating. It's growing both in width and intensity. And it also starts having other tornadoes start forming ahead of it, tracking, pulling back into this main tornado like a conveyor belt.
The inflow of air pulling back into the main tornado is not the only thing it's going to pull in.
The Reno tornado was complicated in a lot of different ways. You'd like to be just ahead of the tornado. Like if the tornado's moving northeast, I like to be in front of it, driving north, and then back east, and then north and east, and that's what I did on a Reno day. That's what kept us safe. So the key thing when staying safe and out of its path of the tornado is we saw it growing in its width and its forward speed. They moved southeast for about 3 to 4 miles. Then the tornado slowed way down. It got much larger. Tornado moved east for about 3 miles, and then it curved and it got really wide and started moving northeast. And then the last 3 or 4 miles, it was really large, and then it shot due north. So it made almost a complete U over about a 10-mile path. And when it made that hook, that hard beam to the left, and accelerated, that's when it caught a lot of people off guard.
Generally, you know, large tornadoes move slowly and they're anchored in. However, with the Reno tornado, there were multiple vortices. There wasn't just that one large tornado. There were several tornadoes going on at the same time under this one mesocyclone.
Jeff makes a life and death decision to hit the gas. But will that be enough to avoid being hit himself?
Rain curtains were rotating around and hiding the monster tornado inside. You knew something bad was back there. And I remember having the accelerator all the way to the floor, maybe doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And I could feel the front of the truck in a 100-mile headwind. I could feel the front of the truck doing this. I could literally feel it coming off the ground.
The chase vehicle gets kind of a lightness to it. You can just feel it.
The tornado is catching us!
And she said a dozen times, we're gonna get sucked into it, we're gonna get sucked into it, we're gonna get sucked into it.
Ah.
I knew Jeff was giving it all he could.
Hold on!
I was scared to death.
Oh my God, it got us!
There was about a 5 or 10 second period of time when I looked up with the storm and I saw this huge mass coming, and the inflow was so enormous, it felt like any second the entire vehicle was going to go airborne and I was going to get shot up to outer space. So yeah, it was scary. It was really scary.
If a car gets sucked into a tornado, you're going to die.
If it gets you and you get sucked in, or you get into that tornado wall of winds, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. What I did over the next minute or two was going to determine whether we survived or we got chewed up and hit by this big tornado. It was literally down to seconds. And I understood that threat as it was happening, but I didn't like the feeling.
I just felt confident that Jeff was going to pull us out of this.
I think we need to go north.
He makes good decisions continuously when we're out storm chasing, and so I felt confident we were going to make it out.
My sensory Every piece of information 360 degrees around me tells me what the next move I need to make in order to stay alive. You question your mortality when you have this huge, big killer tornadoes that are bearing down on you, and you know horrible things are happening. So you have split seconds to make a decision, am I gonna survive this?
The El Reno tornado was 2.6 miles wide. The moment that I'm looking up through the front windshield and I can see the debris going over, I'm thinking to myself, I may not get out of this one.
So as we're driving away from the El Reno tornado, the steering wheel is actually vibrating. I could feel the wheel vibrating as I'm driving. It's from the ground rumbling. So I've got the front of the truck being picked up and the wheels vibrating, so you know what's behind me is really bad. When the tornado made a hard left turn and went up to I-40, we found ourselves at the I-40 on-ramp, and we, at that point, decided to head east into Oklahoma City.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
We drove to the city. We were dealing with flash flooding, heavy rain, high winds, but it was on a downhill hillside as far as intensity goes of the overall storm. It weakened. At that point, that was the end of that cycle of that large tornado.
I remember when the El Reno tornado dissipated, just watching this massive wedge as it went to the north, and then as it dissipated, it just looked like it disappeared.
The El Reno tornado was the second widest tornado on record. It was about 2.6 miles wide. It was just a beast beyond words. The lift associated with the updraft that generated the tornado was just incredible. So you have these sucking winds coming in from miles around and feeding this thing, and it just widens with time and becomes the most fearsome looking thing.
There were a number of people killed and injured during the Reno tornado. Several chasers were killed, and knowing those people really hit us hard, and the community, weather community hard as well.
For me, I'll never forget the El Reno tornado because of the other storm chasers that lost their lives. It just shows me how fragile life can be, and we were really close to something major disastrous happening. And I think of how blessed we are, how fortunate we are that we didn't get caught in this major tornado.
It was a day to remember like no other day, that we barely survived. That's the weather event I will never forget.